Okay, so write this down. You can change your past. You can't change your past. Write down, you can't change your past. But your future is a clean slate and can be shaped by your choices. Think about what I just said. You can't change your past. Your past is what it is what it is. What it is what it is. It is good, bad, and different. It is. But your future, tomorrow, an hour from now, is a complete, clean slate that can be shaped totally by the choices you make now, right this minute. I wrote down here, the choices you make today will determine what will be. What will be, what you will have, what you will do. The choices you make today are going to determine what you will be, what you will have, and what you will do. They determine what you will do with your word that we talked about last week was potential. They will determine what you can do with your potential. And what we talked about last week, very specifically, we spent a lot of time on this. We need to train ourselves to focus on your potential instead of your limitations. We tend to look at our limitations first and then our potential. We need to constantly be looking at what's possible today, what our potential is today, not our limitations. So some quotes from some famous people in the past that have really changed the destiny of these people and of countries. Winston Churchill said, never, 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 never give up. In the darkest days of World War II, when England was being bombed mercilessly, back into the Stone Age, basically, Winston Churchill, the lone voice, would say, never, never, never give up. Prime Minister Ben Gurion, which was the first Prime Minister of Israel in 1948, was sitting around with his advisors on the eve of war. Now, those of you that know Israel or have been to Israel know that Israel is surrounded pretty much on all sides by people who want to completely destroy it, completely take it out. Has stated, we want you gone. So back in 1948, not a lot of guns, not a lot of ammunition. They had the dreams and thoughts of this guy named Ben Gurion. And Ben Gurion sat around with his advisors on the eve of war, and he says, okay, ladies and gentlemen, tell me why it cannot be done. Why we can't win this war. I want all the reasons listed as to why we cannot win this war. And his advisors went around the table and gave him all the reasons why he couldn't win the war. And then he stands up and he says to him, great, I want to thank you for all your input. Now, let's go out and win the war. And in fact, those of you that know, in 1948 they were granted statehood. The moment, within 10 minutes of being granted statehood, Israel was being bombed by the countries that were surrounding it. And with the focus and faith and consistency of leadership, they made that happen. Potential versus limitations. Potential versus limitations. When I started working, I had also a mentor, a guy named Seymour Nadelman. Seymour, my job was to the company handled 12 railroads in 7 western states. And their job was to pick up salvage. The train fell off the track. Our job was not to pick up the car, not to pick up the metal, but our job was to pick up and transload the merchandise. That was our job. That was my very first real job. I did that for 2 or 3 years. That was my college education. We were in Mowich, Oregon. The terrain was very hilly. We had 44 cars had fallen off the track. They were pulled off the track going around a curve. I was on constant call. I had a suitcase in my car. I could be called at any time. and I would be flown to wherever it was, and my job was to supervise, be the eyes on the ground, give him the information, and then we would hire a crew, bring a crew in and transload the merchandise. That was our job, okay? And we did that for the account of the railroad. The railroads at that time were self-insured up to about $4 million of doing that, and then after that, Lloyd's of London would kick in. So, Malwich, Oregon, 1971, 1972, 44 cars down in the ditch. There's a river going through this area. Impossible. When I saw it, it was absolutely impossible. So, you know, how are we going to get the men down there? How are we going to get the trucks down there? How are we going to get this, the merchandise out of there? And this was my first communication with Seymour. I figured it was impossible. It wasn't going to get done. I called him up, and it was really cool because at that time, today everybody has a cell phone, right? At that time, no one had a cell phone. I had a car phone. It was the coolest thing, you know? And I had this really cool car phone, and I would call Seymour up, and I would tell him, Seymour, this is, and I'd give him the whole description of exactly what's going on. I was just out of the service, so what was I, 22, 23 years old at the time? 22 years old? Yeah, 22 years old. Gave him the information. This is the most impossible thing. I can't imagine us ever getting the product out, getting this taken care of. Seymour's words to me at that time, and carried on for the next 2 or 3 years in every situation, just like that, is impossible only takes a little bit longer. And sure enough, it didn't matter on every decision, on every situation, on everything that we had to do, on all those 44 cars and all that merchandise. We picked it up. If it was a piece of paper on the ground, we left that scene pristine. We carried everything out of there. Impossible, just took a little bit longer. It was an amazing, amazing experience. Potential versus limitations. During a very trying time in my life, at a time when I was thinking about going out on my own, talking to my dad, and one day in the mail, I was sent this, and I wanted to share this with you. This was very, very difficult. This was 1989. The market was still rising. I was running the largest Century 21 in the country at the time, and unbeknownst to me, I was going to get fired the next day. I get this the day before. Okay? Interesting. It says, don't be afraid to fail. You've failed many times before, although you don't remember. You fell down the first time you tried to walk. You almost drowned the first time you tried to swim. Did you hit the ball the first time you swung a bat? Heavy hitters, the ones who hit the most home runs, strike out the most. R.H. Macy failed 7 times before his store in New York caught on. English novelist John Kiersey got 753 rejection slips before he published 564 books. Babe Ruth struck out 1,330 times. He also hit 714 home runs. Don't worry about the failure. Worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try. 2 days later, I was terminated from this really cool job, which, as it turned out, to probably be the best thing that ever happened to me in my career, because I went out to found Century 21 Masters in 1989, and the rest is history. I wrote down here, Walt Disney was turned down 302 times before he got financing for his dream of creating the happiest place on earth. Colonel Sanders spent 2 years, potential limitations, potential limitations, potential limitations. Colonel Sanders spent 2 years driving across the United States looking for restaurants to buy his chicken recipe. He was turned down, listen to this, 1,009 times. 1,009 times. How successful is Colonel Sanders today? Pretty darn successful, isn't it? I wrote down here, when you study any successful person, you learn that the vast majority of them have had more failures than they've had successes. You know what? You can write that down. The vast majority of any successful person you know about or know personally have had far more failures than they've had successes. This is because successful people are persistent. Potential limitations. Potential limitations. Successful people are persistent. The more they stumble, the more they fall, the more they get right back up and get going again. The more they stumble, the more they fall, the more they get back up. On the other hand, people that don't get back up and don't try again, or try as intensely again, don't succeed. Let me ask you a question. Interesting thought. We all know people that have had some failures in their life, overcome the failures, and have succeeded. How many of you can think of people that have failed and then didn't go on to do anything else? All of us. They went out on a for sale by owner, and the for sale by owner rejected them. And they never went to another for sale by owner again in the history of their career. They went to expireds. And they went to 3 expireds, and they didn't get any of the expireds, and the expireds said things like that they didn't know how to answer, what to say and how to say it. They got rejected, and they never went back to expireds. You know what the issue is in the real estate business today? It's been that way for 40 years I've been around. Some of you have a great first or second year. You do some open houses, you do some door knocking, you do some phone calling, you know some people in the business, and you have an okay first year. And then what you do is you repeat that year for 20 more years. And you're frustrated that you don't grow to the next level. Truth is, that's why a lot of people come to this company. A lot of people come to this company because they feel that frustration. They feel it. They don't know how to get past it. They had their first year in business, they did 10, 12, 14 deals. Not bad for your first year. Crappy for your 24th year. Right? Okay for your first year. Not bad. First, second year. But because you don't do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it over time, therein lies the problem. I wrote down here, every time you do something, you learn from it. And therefore, you find a better way to do it next time. So, and you fail, and you get back up. You learn from it, what worked, what didn't work, and then you go back in and try it again. I wrote down here, I love this thought. Success is neither a miracle nor a matter of luck. Success is neither a miracle nor a matter of luck. I wrote a question here, and we talked about this last week. Why don't you do what we just asked you to do? Got quiet. Jeez. Why don't you do what we ask you to do? We have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether we prove it or somebody else proves it, that there are agents in this country, in this office, in this neighborhood, that do what we ask them to do most of the time, and they're very successful. Very successful. And then there are agents that hear us, you're here, you ask us questions, in some cases fight with us. Well, you tell me to door knock at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think 9:15 is better. So let's talk about it. Bullshit. Just go do it. That's all. You like 9:15, I like 9 o'clock, go. We don't need to talk. Okay? I like 9 o'clock, you like 3 o'clock, go. Can I tell you why 9 o'clock's better than 3 o'clock? Anybody interested? Yes. 3 reasons. You can write this down. Okay? One, at 9 o'clock in the morning, you and the people you talk to have more energy. At 9 o'clock in the morning, you generally have more energy. Number two, the people that you talk to at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning are more apt to talk to you and more interested in what you might have to say, small amount, not huge, than people at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Because at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they're coming home from work, they're tired, and the last thing they want to do is talk to a real estate agent saying, and you're not saying, when do you plan on moving? And you're not giving them good information about the marketplace. You're saying, hey, if I can get you more money for your house than you could get 3 years ago, would you sell, yes or no? That's your script. That doesn't work. But the script could work in the morning if you said, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I don't know if you knew this or not, but in your area of Walnut last month, 44 houses actually closed escrow. And the really good news, 22 of those sold at or above list price. Did you know that was going on in the neighborhood? You give information, and then you get information. And the third reason, so one is you have more energy, two is they're more receptive, and three is the real deal. Because by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you will find something that will conflict with your prospecting. I guarantee it. Because if there's anything out there you would rather do that's different, including eye surgery, okay? I'm telling you, you will do anything not to prospect. Anything. Somebody calls you and says, look, would you take me to the hospital and sit with me for 3 hours while I get checked out? You will go do that gladly so you don't have to prospect. Okay? True or false? True. All right, so let's just move on. We don't want to talk about that. So we talked about that kind of stuff. So I wrote this down. So I asked a question, why don't you do what we ask you to do? Then I answered it, the truth is, you would be more successful faster. I believe, when we've proven, that if you just simply do what we ask you to do, most of what we ask you to do, most of the time, you will be successful in a short period of time. Now that's the absolute truth. I wrote down here, it's not bragging if it's true. And it's true. It is true that you will be more successful if you'll just follow the plan. I wrote down, agents who follow what we ask them to do better than agents that don't. Do you know of an exception? Agents that do most of what we ask them to do, most of the time, are successful, much more successful than agents that don't. Sit down with me and prove me wrong, please. Okay? I challenge you. So let's work at how the brain works on that question. Because it's like, if it works, and you kind of see it works, then why aren't you buying into it on a bigger scale? So I did some reading on this. It's called From Rejection to Assimilation. Write this down. From Rejection to Assimilation. The first exposure to an idea, is rejected because it conflicts with my preconceived notions. So you're given an idea that the scripts work. Now, this is a process that we go through as humans. Okay, bear with me. So the first thing that we talk about is, here's an idea, but this idea conflicts with your preconceived notions. Now, here's the problem. Most people never get past number one. Because if the idea conflicts with what you think, you don't go any further. That's issue number one. The second exposure, meaning the second time you heard scripts and dialogues are good for you, is I understand, but I still can't accept it. I understand it, I hear you, but I can't accept it. Number two. Number three, you're getting exposed to it the third time. This is why I keep bringing this stuff up to you. I figure after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 27, I'm going to start to get through. We're breaking through. Well, this says the third time is it's a partial acceptance. I agree with the idea, but I have reservations. Anybody relating to this stuff? Huh? I kind of get it, but I still have some reservations. The fourth exposure is full acceptance. You know the idea expresses the same way. You know, this idea expresses the same way I've been thinking. Okay, it's starting to, yeah, scripts and dialogues are pretty good. Yeah, that's kind of working for me. I get it. And the sixth one, the fifth exposure is partial assimilation. I use that idea, and it's terrific. I use that idea, and it's terrific. And then the sixth exposure is I gave that idea to one of my sales associates yesterday. They own it, and they just gave it away. They own the idea and just gave it away. And I hear this, not enough, but I hear it sometimes, where I'll overhear a conversation with a veteran agent who kind of gets the scripts and dialogues, is kind of getting it, works the scripts and dialogues into their routine, works the prospecting into their routine, goes to see expireds, goes to see previews, and they're sharing this with a newer agent to the company, where they're saying, the newer agent comes to them and says, so tell me about your successes. And they say, well, you got to learn those scripts. Boy, when you learn those scripts, you got it. You're there. Or, you know, I know that Neil talks about previewing property, and I know it's hard to get that, but boy, when you preview property, it makes a difference. It shifted everything and made me a better listing agent. I hear this almost every week. I wish I heard it every day, but I hear it every week. I wrote down here, the key to changing is, and you can write this down, repetition, repetition, repetition. The key to change is repetition, repetition, repetition. But not just any repetition, spaced repetition. So what am I talking about there? Do something over and over and over again until it sinks in. And then do it again. Do it again. And do it again. And do it again. Peter Drucker, those of you that have read anything about management, Peter Drucker is probably one of the biggest gurus on that, said nothing good happens by accident. To change behavior and get results, you need structure, support, and accountability. So write that down. You need structure, you need support, and you need accountability. Tell me, show me, let me, correct me. Do you hear it? Tell me, show me, let me, meaning let me do it, and then correct me. We're doing that with you all the time. We do that in our advanced script class. You know, we have you get that one sentence. Just work on that one sentence. Get that right. Then we move to the next sentence. And then we get that one right. Tell me, show me, let me, and then correct me. And when you videotape your listing presentations and you videotape your pre-listing or your pre-qualifying questions, and then we walk you through that. So this was working good. Wow, that was great. Nah, this needs a little bit of tweaking. So tell me, show me, let me, correct me. I wrote down here, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Just because you do the scripts and dialogues, when do you plan on moving, when do you plan on moving, when do you plan on moving, doesn't mean you're doing it right. It means you're practicing. That's why you need to come to the advanced script classes. That's why you need to show up for your coaching calls and have your coaches help you with your scripts and dialogues. I wrote down here, successful people yearn to learn and have a plan for learning. I wrote down, start with one thing. Just choose one thing this week to learn. A script, a dialogue. Choose to go see some expireds. See how that really works. If you screw up, you screw up. Doesn't matter. You don't know what to say? Great. You went to the appointment, or you went into the door knock, You didn't know what to say and how to say it. You stood there like a cow watching the train go by, you know. And come on, that's cool. It's okay. Because you'll come back to the office and you won't let that happen again, and you'll work on your scripts and dialogues so that doesn't happen again. Know the expired script better than anyone else, or the pre-qualifying script better than anyone else. No matter where you are, no matter what your background, you can change it for the better. Think about what I just said. No matter where you are in life, you could change that for the better. Potential, limitations. Potential, limitations. I wrote down here, it doesn't matter what's happening in the market. Arguably, some people say this is a better market. I'm not sure it is. Because you as a professional agent, they don't need you quite as much. Or they don't think they need you quite as much. Because does it really take a lot of science to figure out what it should sell for today? Do you really know what it's going to sell for? Do you have any idea of what those properties are going to sell for? Not as much. Where they need us is in the handling of the transaction and in the negotiating of the deal. Where people get in trouble, where I've always gotten in trouble, is if I try to negotiate my own transaction. My ego gets in the way, my attitude gets in the way, and I end up losing sight of what I really want to do, which is get the property at a fair price with fair terms, right? Fair market value, little or no aggravation in my time frame. That's what we're trying to do. It doesn't matter what's happening in the market. We are in the best business. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the best business. It's the best time to be in the business. People have to have a place to live. People love Southern California. Rates are still very, very low. I've told you before, I believe the interest rates are really free money. It's really free money what's going on out there today. You can get interest at 15-year fixed, 2.85, something like that. 15 years, that sound right? Okay,